right, welcome to another episode of the Business Hustle Podcast with Alex Moore. I'm your host, Alex Moore, and I am lucky to have Henry Zaytoun Squared. Can we call you guys that? Henry
Sure.
Zaytoun Squared. I have Henry Sr. and Henry Jr. of Zaytoun Orthodontics in Raleigh, North Carolina. You guys are a staple in North Raleigh, aren't you?
We hope we are.
So I grew up in North Raleigh, and I went to Lynn Road, and then I ended up going to Daniels Middle School, and then Broughton my freshman year, and then Sanderson my senior year. And I saw your guys' T-shirts all around and all of that. And this may be a self-serving podcast at some point because I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. So we may be coming to see you.
We're happy to see them.
That's right. So tell us a little. We'll go to Henry Sr. first. So tell us a little bit about. So how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 94.
94.
Yes.
So you're retired. You don't work anymore, and you just live the good life, right?
Well, not exactly.
Jamie. So Jamie Holt introduced us, and Jamie told me that you're one of the sharpest guys he knows, and you work harder than most people. A quarter of your age. So I'm interested to hear your story.
Jamie is very kind. I'm not actively seeing patients now. I help my son Henry Jr. and my daughter Mary Paula Zaytoun Steel, and they're seeing the patients on a regular basis. And if they need some help, I'm there to assist.
Mm-hmm.
I was practiced up until when, Henry?
Oh, that's probably been about 10 or 15 years, about 10 years ago. So it's about 84, mid-80s, mid-80s, yep.
Anyhow, that's not terribly important. But I've enjoyed my practice. I started off as a general dentist. As a matter of fact, upon graduation, I was sworn in as a lieutenant junior grade in the Navy, and I spent 2 years a part of it in the first few weeks in the United States, and then I was assigned to United States Third Army headquarters in Germany, and I spent almost 2 years there as a general dentist. And I came back, decided I was open up a private practice of general dentistry, and I practiced in Rocky Mount for 10 years. Had a very pleasant, successful practice there. And after that, I decided while I was there that it's time for me to specialize.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave up my private practice, and I went back to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and studied orthodontics for the next 2 years, and got my Master of Science degree in orthodontics. And then I decided to move to Raleigh from Rocky Mount. And we've been here since 1950.
Wow.
While I was in school, in graduate school that is, in orthodontic graduate school, our sixth child was born, Henry that is.
Yeah.
And we moved to Raleigh, and we had 3 more children.
So you've got 9 kids?
I have.
Wow.
And it's been a very pleasant move. It's been a good life. God's been good to us, and the people in Raleigh have been extremely good to us. And we've had we would like to say a very successful life and practice in the city of Raleigh.
Yeah.
And,
So I'm going to jump into my first question, kind of right off the bat, if that's all right.
Please.
So having 9 kids, my wife is the youngest of 8, and I'm the youngest of 5. So we're big families too. And one of the things that I'm struggling with right now, as a young dad and aspiring entrepreneur and stuff like that. Talk a little bit about obviously having 9 kids, running your own business. What are some of the lessons you learned over the years about the work-life balance and juggling running a business and having a family?
Well, the first thing you got to have when you have a large family is a good wife.
Yeah.
And that's indispensable, really, almost indispensable anyhow. But we had a good balance. I took care of the practice. She took care of the house and the family. And from time to time, I would have her in the office, and she would help me in the office, and did a good job. Anytime I had a real problem in the office, management problems or whatever else, I could call on her, and she could come there and clean it up. Really, and I could always depend on her for that. And as far as the family is concerned, I believe they were reasonably comfortable.
Yeah.
And we tried to direct their education and their training and their social life and their spiritual life. And they all studied music, one thing or another, while they were all the way in school, and did quite well at it.
Yeah.
And they participated in athletics as well, and they did things, thank God, that I wasn't able to do as a child, and they were able to get these things done, and I think it added to their life.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Henry Jr.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about. I mean, obviously, I think your dad is a real hard worker, right? So talk about growing up with him and seeing what lessons did you learn as a kid that from your dad about hard work and sacrifice and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that Dad taught all of us that the idea of working diligently, working hard, being passionate about what you do, loving what you do, and he instilled that in each of the 9 kids. I think 2 of us went into orthodontics, and so we every day saw that when we worked with him back in the mid '80s and throughout the '90s and 2000s when we were all working together. And so, but he was a great example, and he was a great balance too. It was easy to see that he would balance his work with being with us kids, being with my mom. Our faith was is and was very important to us at the time. And he was a great barometer for that. It was easy to see that. It's nice to try to emulate it. I'm not even close to where he is on all that stuff, but it's nice to emulate it. Although my wife and I have 8 children, so we didn't quite get 9, so we were 1 short.
almost.
Yeah.
So you decided to go into orthodontics.
Yes.
So did you go work for another company, or did you start your company from the get-go?
Started my own.
Okay. So what were some of the challenges that you had kind of early on that may be timeless? Because obviously the economy is probably a little bit different, and the internet changes things a little bit. But what are some of the timeless lessons that you learned early on?
Well, orthodontics, as everything else, has changed considerably. The one thing I had to learn, and learn fast, was that the changes were rapid, and you had to stay abreast of them. And so I had to make time for attending professional meetings and postgraduate courses and that sort of thing to stay abreast. Problems, you just learn as you go. You would like to think that you're doing everything exactly like it ought to be, but your patients teach you differently from time to time, and associates treat you differently, and you just learn to observe and to take those things that you see that are good and adapt them, and discard those things that are obviously not good, and you just pray that you have the wisdom to see the difference. And so with that, we just did the best we could each day. And every patient that came in to the office, they were very special. Every person's special. And they're no two alike, but you just learn to meet that patient's needs, not what you want, but what you thought they should have, and then you go from there. And
why do you still work?
excuse me.
Why do you still work?
Well, I can give you a quick and easy answer, but either I go to the office to go to work, or I become my wife's secretary.
That's a good motivation, right?
So, and it's stimulating. I stay alive. I'm not sitting around looking at myself, feeling sorry for myself or whatever else. It's as long as God gives me my health, my physical and mental health, then I'll continue to stay busy. I can take vacations and enjoy them, and I can travel and enjoy that. But there's just a limit to how much that I want in the first place. I feel like if I'm accomplishing something and making some good moves, good progress for me or my family or for whomever else, why not?
That's a really good perspective, because a lot of young kids my age, their whole goal is to work so they can stop working. And I'm kind of wired, I think, a lot like you, in that I've always been a hard worker, and working. I find that there's a saying that there's a good place to go if you're broke, and that's to work, right? But I also find that's true. Like, if you're sad, if you're happy, work teaches you a lot of lessons, and it really it's good for the soul, I think. Now, and I think you touched on a really important point about being able to take the vacations and be able to take time off and be able to work hard, because being a workaholic and never enjoying life or family or stuff like that's not healthy either. But I think in this culture today, a lot of people are just kind of afraid of work. So I think that's really good insight.
Well, it's healthy.
Yeah.
Spiritually, physically.
So when did you decide that you wanted to go into orthodontics?
That's a good question, Alex. Obviously, I was exposed to it all my life, and I worked in the office throughout my high school years in the laboratory and that kind of thing. And I went to college thinking maybe I'd like to go into some type of healthcare, but I was thinking more medicine. And it sort of dawned on me that as I got through a couple of years of undergraduate, that I didn't want to do the medical, life or death kind of decisions on a regular basis, but I still thought healthcare was a good field. And that's sort of when I thought maybe dentistry is where I wanted to be. And so I was fortunate enough to get into dental school after undergraduate, and then I wasn't sure I wanted to be an orthodontist until a couple of years into general dentistry, but into dental school. And I actually practiced a couple of years of general dentistry after dental school before I went into orthodontics. So it was a gradual thing, but obviously Dad's influence and my older sister Mary Paula, who was 5 years older than me, who's our partner, also had some good influences on me too.
So so after you decided to go into orthodontics, did you go work for Dad right away, or have you worked anywhere else in orthodontics?
Yeah, I did. That did come straight out of graduate school and came right to the practice. And at the time, Mary Paula, my sister, had a practice in Dubuque, Iowa, where her in-laws lived, and so she was splitting time between Raleigh and Dubuque. And so when I came, it was the first full-time associate that he had, and it was a learning curve. But I'll tell you what was the best thing that he did for me, and this is I've got a daughter who will join us in next May as an orthodontist. So I hope I can do it for her. But what Dad did for me was he said he let me loose. He sort of said, go out and try to do the things you think you need to do. When you need my help, let me know. And he certainly helped me quite a bit on many, many occasions. But I would come up with some crazy idea, and he never said, "Oh, that's nuts." He would say something like, "Well, we tried that a few years ago, and it was fairly successful, not great, but we could try it again, and maybe there's a new twist to it." That kind of. He's always encouraging, and that was really uplifting. It helped me grow a lot those early years.
Yeah, so, and one of the things that intrigues me about your guys' story is kind of the multi-generational nature of the business, and how because that's really tough to pull off for a lot of families, because you've got the family dynamics and the business dynamics, and obviously they're gonna mix, but you kind of have to be structured in how you mix those and stuff like that. So what advice do you have for people who are in a family business, want to start a family business, whether it's with son and dad, or brothers, or husband and wife? Because I know a lot of your family's involved in your business. So talk a little bit about some advice that you guys have that you've learned of how to successfully navigate that.
I'll start and I'll let Dad finish up, but there are two things that come to mind right off the bat, and I say this almost tongue-in-cheek, but it's somewhat true. It's the worst of the worst and the best of the best.
Yeah.
You can have knockdown, drag-out fights with your sibling, with your sister, or whatever it may be, over a business matter, and you still know that at the end of the day you still love them. Mm-hmm. And so it's pretty cool. That's a nice logistic there. The other thing I think we learned early on, very early on, and we did this was a little bit trial by error, but we ended up getting it right, is that we had to park our business stuff at the office. When we were at home having dinner or at the beach together or something like that, we tried very hard to stay away from a lot of business stuff. And that doesn't mean that it crept up and it was good, and that was fine. But the hardcore stuff we tried to stay away from. We didn't do that very well the first couple of years, and that was a little bit of a pain. But I think we got it figured out.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dad?
Well, if you bring a family into your business, first of all, they better be reasonably well prepared.
Yeah.
Knowledge-wise and technique-wise and whatever else. And secondly, I, as the senior person, got to realize they don't know everything, and they're not going to know everything overnight. And I can't get impatient with that. And the third thing is that they must realize they don't know everything either, and that they can learn from me and learn from everybody else. And it's a constant educational experience. You don't learn everything the first day. It takes time. It takes experience, and it takes patience, and it takes understanding
and humility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever a time looking at a patient that Henry and Mary Paula were treating and saying, "This is wrong. This you're not doing that right."
Yeah.
You better look at it very carefully, because they may be doing a lot of things right that you don't understand yourself. And so it's a mutual respect for the integrity of each person and their abilities, and that you're doing this not for yourself, but you're doing it for the patient and doing it for the practice.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's I think that's really insightful. So I'm a real estate agent for my day job. That's what I do full time. And one thing that I've realized is that typically real estate agents are older, right? There's a lot of older real estate agents, and the thing that I realize is that I'm able to contribute a lot in the technology realm, and I mean I can run circles around them, right? With technology and all this stuff. But there's something that these older people, their experience and their life experiences and they know how to sit across the table from somebody and look them in the eye and carry on a conversation, and they have so much to contribute to me. And I think that's so important to realize, is that they have a lot to learn from me, and I have equally as much to learn from them. And so I think that's really important in kind of that, where you get new people coming in, whether it's family or whether it's not, that you kind of have to balance both sides of it.
Well, quite frankly, I hope they're smarter than I am. I don't want anybody dumber than I am. That they have intellect that's superior to mine.
Yep.
And, but a lot of times when you would allow me to do something or say something or try something out, and I was sort of got the impression that you weren't quite on board with it. And most of the time, almost inevitably, I'd go down that rack and I'd listen to what you'd had to say, and I'd tweak it one way or the other, and then it went smoothly. So the good news is I was I had some type of kick in the head where somebody said, "Listen to him; he knows what he's talking about," and that happened all over and over again.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the and maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but talk about the weight of owning a business that where you, I mean, how many employees do you guys have?
About 14.
14. So talk about the weight and the stress and kind of how you guys have navigated that. Obviously, you as kind of the patriarch of the whole thing. You know, a lot's on your shoulders in terms of responsibility, but now you've got 14 families that are dependent on you. You know, a few dozen people that are dependent on you. Talk about how you navigate that stress, if there is any.
That's a hard one to start on, really. Maybe Henry should answer that. I'm not as attuned to it right now as he is. He's running the practice now.
Well, what I learned though from Dad was that it is stressful and it is important, and it's one of the most difficult parts of what we do is to make sure that we have the right personnel, that they're well trained, that we're a good team, and it's something we work on every day. It's an everyday occurrence. And I learned from him that it's really important to be positive, to be always positive. Now you may have to be stern, and you may have to bring somebody in your office and correct them on something that wasn't done correctly. But you're always positive, and you're always confident in that you're putting the very best product out there, and you got the very best personnel. And we work really hard at making sure that's what we have. Yeah. Doesn't always happen that way, but we sure do work hard at that. Yeah. And I learned all those lessons from him.
You don't learn it the first day. It takes time, experience. But on the other hand, whoever's in your office, in your employee, you have to have respect for that person. You have to think that they're doing the very best they know at the moment, and very conscientious and honest about what they're doing. And then you instruct as you go along, not as though you're chastising them about something, but you're teaching them.
Yeah.
This is the way we might want to consider this sort of thing, and it's building blocks as you go, and if they're the right kind of people, they're helping you build those blocks, and they're cooperating with you, and they should feel free to come to you and express their opinion about what's going on, what isn't going on. And I can remember very well, I was very young in practice, and I had this young lady working with me as a dental assistant. I was a general dentist, and I was having problems with this patient. The behavior, it's a young child. And we finally dismissed the patient for that appointment. And she said to me, she said, "Dr. Zaytoun, you didn't win anything that we didn't accomplish anything here." And I said, "You're absolutely correct." And I never forgot that.
Yeah.
And so you learn from your colleagues as well. They're your partners, and you treat them that way, and you try to instruct them as you go, try to inspire them, try to help them grow in what they're doing. I had another young lady worked for me some years ago, and I knew she was smart, and very smart, matter of fact. But she was cutting the corners everywhere she could, and she just trying to. I just couldn't quite understand it. And I finally called her in and I said, "Cheryl," I said, "you're a very bright young lady. You're as smart as you can be. You can do anything you want to do. But you're not being fair to yourself. And we're here to help you if you want to be helped. But if you don't want to be helped, you ought to find something else to do." Well, she walked out and she thanked me for it. A few weeks later, she came back. I could immediately see a change.
Yeah.
But she came back to me. She said, Dr. Zaytoun, she said, you're absolutely correct. I need to straighten up myself. I'm planning to go back to college. And she did. She graduated and became a very successful business lady herself.
Yeah.
And so, they're people, and they're your partners. You have to respect them. If you don't respect them, they're certainly not going to respect you.
Yeah. How has patience helped you guys grow and navigate growing a business?
Patience, as in
just patience, because I think I certainly lack patience in a lot of ways, right? I want it to happen tomorrow, right? If you ask me, I would love to have a business that I can pass on to my son and grandkids and stuff like that. But I struggle so much with patience because I want that next week or in the next 6 months. And when you have that perspective, when you don't temper that perspective, you can make bad decisions, you can rush things, and then you can get frustrated and end up not working out long term. So how has patience helped you guys grow into something that's sustainable? Because like your story is just absolutely remarkable, that you've got, it's your daughter that's coming to 3 generations. Like that's really remarkable.
I don't know if patience totally equates to with the lack of patience with sort of the type A personalities that a lot of us have that are in this field. And I would say that all 3 of us, and Mary Lanier, my daughter, the 4th one coming in, probably have those type A personalities. But there's interesting in that orthodontics requires you to have patience, because you don't fix somebody's crooked smile in 1 week or 1 visit. It takes 18 months or so to fix that. So you have to become patient, and then you have to teach the patient to be patient, and the mothers to be patient, and that type of thing. So it's a learned skill that fortunately our profession helps us a little bit. What do you think?
There's no question about that. I guess that was the biggest transition I had to make from general dentistry to orthodontics. And I was a general dentist. I see a decayed tooth. I treat the tooth, fix it, it's over. I'm through that appointment.
You can check that off your list, right?
Well, in orthodontics, you carry out a procedure and you step back and say, I hope it works. and it may not be, it might take 6 months to see the changes that you're anticipating, but you got to learn to understand that, and also to help the patient understand that. And the patient, they don't understand the orthodontic mechanics and whatever, but they do know how they feel, and how they perceive things. And so you have to work with your patient, encourage them, and to understand that this is not an immediate result that you're going to have, but it's going to take some time for it to occur, and to encourage them along the way, and to help them help themselves. We put the appliances on them, the patients, but they're the ones that wear them, and they're the ones that have to make them work, so to speak. And so we have to encourage that.
Well, I think that's so insightful. There's a book I read a couple of years ago called The Compound Effect, and it talks about how, January 1st, everyone says, I want to lose, 40 pounds in the next 3 months, right? And nobody ever succeeds at that, right? But if you said, I wanted to lose half a pound every week for the next year, you would be down 26 pounds, and half a pound. And so when you look at the teeth, if you put on braces today and you look at the teeth tomorrow, there's no perceptible changes. And if you look a week later, probably nothing. Right. But it's, little unnoticeable changes day in, day out, hour after hour over the next, 18 months, 24 months, whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden you look back, when you step back with the lens of time, you're able to say, this is where we started and this is where we are 6 months later, this is where we are 12 months and 18 months later. And that change is incredibly noticeable. But if someone came in and said, I wanted, my teeth are a mess today and I want perfect teeth in 30 days, you can't help them.
That's right.
And so I think that insight is really applicable in business as well, because so many times, the changes in your business or your hustle or whatever you're doing are going to be you have to look back with the lens of time. Mm-hmm. You have to look back and say, where was I 6 months ago and where was I 12 months ago, and see if there has been change. Because if you're looking day by day, which a lot of times I tend to do, right, because of that immaturity that I have, and I still have to learn to grow up, you can get really, really frustrated. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's really really good insight. What is somebody my age, what is something that I can work on or I can do to be a better team member and a better employee that would help have, if I ultimately wanted to start my own business someday, but I work for you guys, what are skills and traits that I can have that will help you guys help me be a better employee, but are also applicable to my long-term aspirations of owning my own business? I know that's a complicated question,
yeah,
but
I think it makes a lot of sense. Though you got to be a self-starter. You got to be motivated. You got to be able to get up in the morning, get yourself going, and want to learn, want to be there, want to be a team player, want to be a part of a very successful business. The only difference in our business and in some other types of business is that if you want to go from that step of wanting to be a good team member, good employee, to being an owner or orthodontist,
right,
you got at least 7 years of school.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a step, but you can't just transition into being an orthodontist.
That's
so it's
right.
a little bit different.
Yeah.
I've got friends who are in their family business, but it's a true business where they're working up the ladder, and eventually they'll get to the executive suite. But, but they don't have to go back to school to do that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting though. I think we've had probably upwards of 35 to 40 people that have come into our office as college students, mostly at NC State, and have been pre-dental or pre something of that matter, and have worked in our office for anywhere from 2 to 5 years, and then been motivated enough to apply for dental school and become a dentist, and many of those have become orthodontists. And so we've had quite a few that have come through our thing. So I think we teach them pretty well.
Yeah. How has your leadership style and your process of becoming a leader, because obviously you started the business from the ground up and you kind of stepped in as the son, and now you're the leader of the organization in a lot of ways, and then you've got your daughter starting. So how have you guys evolved and adapted as leaders of the company?
How do you start?
I just watched him. That was my job was easy.
That's a good strategy.
I don't remember ever not starting.
Yeah.
I've been at it.
Yeah.
And as my children grew up, they spent some time in the office, and 2 of them became orthodontists. It's not just a matter. Do you want to become an orthodontist? Do you want to be a widget maker or whatever? I don't know. It's you try to play to their long suit, not mine, but theirs, and see what you want to do with your life. And the same way with an employee. An employee comes in my office. A young lady comes in work. Oh, she's maybe in college or through college, but. Or in high school, whatever it may be. She doesn't know what she wants to do yet. She thinks maybe she does, but she doesn't. But it takes time for that maturation to take place, that nurturing to take place. And you try to encourage that person to do what they think is going to be appropriate for them. It's nice that it would be nice if what we're doing is going to be your choice and so forth, But that's not important. The important thing is what's it going to do for yourself. And as Henry said, we've had 35 or 40 people come through our office, and they were excellent employees, partners or whatever, and they went on to bigger and better things for themselves. And that's if we do that, we feel like we've been successful. And so we give them every encouragement to do what they need to do, to read and to expand themselves, expand their knowledge and their vision as to what life is all about. And it's not just fixing teeth; it's learning how to live.
Yeah.
So we hope we've given that to people, and we'll continue to do so. It makes for a more pleasant environment for us as well. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I you know, in my brief, 30-minute conversations with you guys today, I mean, I can tell a lot about your leadership style and stuff like that, and it's taught me a lot about, investing in the people that work for you and that you work with, and seeing the best in them, not the worst, because it's easy to pick out the worst in everybody and say you're not doing this right, but seeing the best and giving them the benefit of the doubt and helping them and loving them enough to call them out, like you did that one young lady, who was cutting corners. You loved her enough to call her in and say, you're cutting corners. It's not good for you. It's not good for the business. It's not good for anybody. And you were able to help her change. And so I think that's really insightful. Anything else that you guys have to add? This conversation's been really, really intriguing, and I'm grateful that you guys came out to have this conversation with me. I've learned a lot. Anything that you guys want to add for people who are in a family business or starting their own business, or any kind of life advice, closing statements, if you will? You have anything else to add?
I've been asked before, how do I get along with family in the practice, in my business? And that some people don't think that's a possibility. Well, it is, but the ingredients must be that you must trust each other. That family, if you haven't developed trust in the home, you're not going to have it in the office either. And so I trust my family, and I think they trust me. I can lay something down and come back and know it's going to be there when I come back. Whatever it be, thoughts or material, or whatever it is.
Or a chocolate chip cookie, right?
No, that won't be there.
That's right. And that I think that's terribly important. I think there's been having family in your business has had a bad rap over the period of time. It's gotten, I hope it's improving, but there was a time when it was a no-no.
Yeah.
I think you have to be honest with each other, and you have to be generous. And you have to be honest with your employees, you have to be generous with them. And they have to earn your respect, and you have to earn their respect.
Yeah.
If that doesn't come about, there are extenuating circumstances that don't permit that to germinate and to grow. Then the kindest thing you can do is separate yourselves.
Yeah. What about
Alex? I think that Dad said a lot of good things there. I think that you have to trust your family if you want to be in a family business with them, and we certainly trust each other emphatically. I trust him. I trust my sister Mary Paula. I trust my daughter coming in, but you also got to love them, and that's part of it too. You got to make sure that that's still on the table, and then you got to learn to compartmentalize, so that not just work versus leisure, but just inside the work environment, what parts do you want to be the most take charge of, or the most what are those most important to you and the other person, and you got to be able to have good communication back and forth. Sometimes the communication is a daily thing. Sometimes it's not. Doesn't have to be. But it is if you can get it to work, and you know, I've been with Dad since 1987, and my sister and I've been together. She started in 1981, so we've been over 30 years together, all of us, all three of us, and and there hasn't been a day that I've gone and said, boy, this was the worst thing in the world. So it's been very, very rewarding, and not just personally, but professionally and spiritually and everything else.
No, well, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys being on, and I appreciate hearing your story and your sage wisdom and advice. And I know that a lot of the people listening will learn a lot as well. So I thank you guys for being on. And if people are in need of your services or want to find out, where should they go?
Yeah, tell them to come to ZaytounOrthodontics.com and or call our office at 919-782-6911. We'd love to help them.
Perfect. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.